The month of May has just begun, and you know what that means. This is finally the month where the revamp of the room subfloor is going to be released, and we're finally going to be able to play the archives. Right? In all seriousness, it's pretty surprising that this update has yet to be released. Once batch updates were announced, this floor was pushed back to early 2026. That means that it needs to be released this month in order for it to be even generously considered in that range. At any rate, it does seem that batches have been put on hold for this update to be finished, so I do think it's going to come out really soon. Since this update is right around the corner, I think now would be a perfect time to give you guys my predictions for this update. Since you guys just know how good I am at predictions, there really isn't a lot that we know about this update, but we do have a lot of clues that could give us an idea on what to expect. But of course, it won't just be my predictions, because I also made a community post asking for predictions from my comment section. So like my other prediction videos, we're first going to start with my own predictions, and then we'll jump into what you guys predicted down in the comments. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. I lied to you guys, there is in fact further ado. Before we jump into the predictions, I think the best place to start is by talking about what exactly this update is and why we're getting it. The Archives is a complete reimagining and remake of the Rooms subfloor. The Rooms was a secret subfloor added in the Hotel Plus update back in 2023, and it was a reference to the older Roblox game called Rooms, which is what inspired the devs to make doors in the first place. In the Rooms, you traverse an extremely long subfloor while avoiding very lethal and unforgiving entities. A60 and A120 require you to hide once you hear them, and for A90, you need to stop moving for a brief second so that he doesn't attack you. This is easily the longest subfloor in the game, lasting for a whopping 1,000 doors, with an extremely overpowered item waiting for you at the very end, as well as a badge. That being said, you are allowed to leave the floor early without taking any rewards. The Rooms was honestly a really cool addition back when it first dropped, because it was a completely secret subfloor that the devs never teased at all. But there's just one problem with it. It sucks! 3 years later, this is seen as one of the worst modes you can play, and it's something that even veteran players just dread going through. There's a couple reasons why a Rooms revamp is necessary. For one thing, playing through this floor is just extremely boring. Honestly, this subfloor is extremely easy once you get the hang of it. If you hear any entities, just hide in a locker as fast as possible. A60 and A120 can only spawn in certain rooms, and all of them have hiding spots. Yes, including the exit rooms. Those have a safe spot against both entities. Get good. The only entity that's kinda tricky is A90, since you don't have a lot of time to react to him. But eventually, even he will become muscle memory and the entire subfloor becomes trivial. Now sure, all the floors in the game eventually become trivial with enough practice, but at least with the other floors, you have a bit more variety to spice up the gameplay. In the Rooms, it is just a walking simulator. And on top of that, I think it goes without saying that 1,000 rooms is far too many. Going all the way to A1000 is going to take you 2 to 3 hours to complete, and since there are no checkpoints, you must do it all in one sitting. I mean, sure, you can take an earlier exit, but then why go to the subfloor in the first place? To make matters even worse, it is impossible to revive, so even though the entities are pretty easy to deal with, you'll be forced to start all over again from the very beginning if you do make a single mistake. So overall, the gameplay of this floor is terrible. It's an extremely tedious and mindless walking simulator, and if you do end up dying, it's insanely frustrating. The other floors have their own flaws as well, but this is the only floor that I would say is straight up bad. So needless to say, this subfloor is in need of a massive remake to improve the gameplay. The second reason this floor is getting remade is due to the lack of original characters. As stated earlier, this subfloor is one big reference to the original Rooms game. This means that most of the entities in here aren't even original characters to doors. A60 and A120 are entities from Rooms, so it's very likely that the devs want to remake these entities to make them original characters and to have them be legally distinct from the original Rooms entities. Now, A90 has always been unique to doors, so his design is probably going to stay, but they probably want to rename him to separate him a bit from the original Rooms game. To be clear, I think the Rooms dev is fine with his characters being indoors. I mean, imagine if he just pulled up with a lawsuit over a smiley face. But to make marketing and merchandising a bit easier, it's probably best for the doors devs to separate from the original game and to create their own unique characters. So this is yet another important reason for this subfloor to get a remake. So now that we know the main reasons this remake is happening in the first place, we can get some pretty easy predictions out of the way, since the devs obviously want to address these issues that the subfloor currently has. So finally, moving on to my first prediction for the archives, we can only hope they're gonna make this floor shorter. Like I mentioned before, the current 1,000 door subfloor is far too long and it's extremely boring. Now sure, you could add in some new entities to make the gameplay a bit more interesting, but I think 1,000 doors of anything without any checkpoints is gonna get repetitive quickly. So to solve this, the devs either need to add checkpoints to the subfloor, which sounds really convoluted to include, or they need to make the subfloor significantly shorter. I think the latter is much more likely, and I think the archives will probably have around 200 to 300 doors, maybe even a bit less if the new rooms are a bit more expansive. I think the archive should be a bit longer than something like the outdoors, but nothing unbearably long like the original rooms. Moving on to the second problem being the lack of original characters, I think it's pretty safe to say that the original rooms entities are going to get overhauled on top of the new entities that we're going to see. This means their appearance will change a little bit and they will get renamed to be separated from the original game. Conversely, I think that this change will apply to the current rooms related modifiers that we have as well. We don't know exactly what their new names are going to be, but a lot of people have been saying that A90 is going to be changed to Ransom. Given that he forces you to stop moving, I guess that kind of makes sense. However, I think we might already know a new name for one entity, being A120. A couple months back, a new entity was found in the admin panel using exploits, and the name of that entity was Scribbles. Given that A120 is a scribbled smiley face, it makes sense for her to be renamed to that. So I think it's pretty safe to predict that A120 will be renamed to Scribbles. With that being said, keep in mind that just because something got leaked through exploits doesn't mean that it's a true leak that's going to be added into the game. The devs are more than capable of adding in red herrings for exploiters to find, and to my knowledge, they actually did this before with the Christmas event. So I wouldn't be surprised if some things that the hackers find are nothing but red herrings, but they are important to look at nonetheless. And speaking of which, my next prediction is also related to something that people found with exploits. In the recent April Fool's update, hackers found that the MVCS 3000, or what us normal people call the scanner, has been re-added into the admin panel. For those who don't know, the scanner was the original reward for making it all the way to A1000 in the room subfloor. And fun fact about this item, it was bad. Okay, in all seriousness, this was actually a pretty good item. It gave night vision with unlimited battery, and it showed the locations of key items such as keys and library books. Essentially, this was both an endless light source and an endless moonlight float with just a lot more limitations. It definitely wasn't a bad item by any means, but it definitely wasn't worth the trouble of going all the way to A1000 to get it. That's why when the mines came out, they changed the reward to the Starlight Jug. This is an extremely overpowered item, but it is a much better reward for such a tedious run. However, if the archives is going to be shorter and less tedious, it actually makes sense to reintroduce the scanner as a reward for making it to the end. Like I said, the original scanner was pretty good, just not good enough to go through 1,000 rooms. But having a shorter version makes this reward a bit more justified. But all of this begs the question, should you hit the subscribe button? The answer is yes, if you enjoy Roblox Doors videos like these. But it also brings up another question, what's gonna happen to the Starlight Jug? Right now, this is the reward for beating the rooms, but what happens once it gets replaced with the archives? While it's true that the original room subfloor is probably gonna get preserved as a vision, you're not usually able to bring items from visions into the main floor. So if the rooms is getting the vision treatment, I think it's entirely possible that the Starlight Jug is going to get removed altogether from the main game. And in an ironic twist of fate, I think the scanner could replace any Starlight Jugs currently in the Rift. Just like what happened nearly 2 years ago when the jugs replaced the scanners. It's definitely unfortunate since the Starlight Jug is a very fun and OP item, but I wouldn't be surprised if the devs thought it was necessary to remove. For one thing, it's actually easier than ever to get yourself a Starlight Jug because of the Lotus Flower. You still have to go through A1000, but if you take the time to get yourself a Lotus Flower beforehand, you could plant it right at A1000. After that, you never need to beat A1000 to get another jug. Instead, you could just go to the outdoors to get another Lotus, then use your previous Lotus to instantly go to the end of the rooms. With this setup, you can get as many jugs as you want by only going through the outdoors, making this OP item a bit too easy to get. And on top of that, I hate to say it, but this item is just unbalanced, particularly in multiplayer. If one player has a Starlight Jug, they can run so far ahead and leave their teammates behind them without even having a chance to catch up. I'm sure they'll keep this in the admin panel no matter what, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was removed from the main game because of these reasons. Up next is a quick prediction before we get into my final one, but I think it would be really cool if this subfloor had a chase sequence. We already got one of them for the outdoors, and it was a really nice surprise, and one of the coolest parts of that floor. I honestly have no idea who would chase you or how the chase would work, but I think it would be really cool if there was one. And as for my final prediction, I think the archive subfloor is gonna give us a major lore drop for the red modifier light. And there's actually a lot of hints that this is going to happen. With all of this waiting for another subfloor, and with floor 3 3 taking forever to be released, a lot of people are wondering why they don't just work on Floor 3 first and then work on the archives later. I mean, a room's revamp is definitely necessary, but it can't be nearly as important as Floor 3. I myself had that thought process for quite a while, but a couple months back, Redibles actually confirmed that the archives is going to have some pretty important lore setup for Floor 3. While the outdoors serves for more general world building, the archives is going to give some pretty important story elements that will set the stage for Floor 3. And that's why it's going to be prioritized first. Now, for a while, we didn't quite know what this lore drop was going to be related to, but Redibles gave us yet another hint on his Creators on the Block interview. In this interview, he gave a one-word hint for the next update being red. Now, granted, there are a handful of red entities, but the most significant one is easily the Red Architect. This is the only one that we don't know the name of, and it seems to be responsible for adding in the challenging modifiers that make the game more difficult. Since Guiding Light is helpful and Curious Light is neutral, a lot of people suspect that the third architect is evil and is actively working against us. Personally, I don't think there's enough evidence yet to suggest that this red light is straight up malicious, but it does seem to be an interesting character. Nevertheless, from the clues that we have, it seems like the archive might give us some lore about this third architect. We might learn about their role in the story as well as their motivations, and personally, I'm really excited to see that. Especially because if we are correct, this also means that the red light will play a major role in Floor 3, which would be super hype. But either way, this update should have some pretty big lore drops, unlike the original rooms, which only really served to introduce Curious Light. No matter what the new lore is, I'm personally really excited to see it. Oh yeah, and also the journal. And that's everything for my own predictions, but now it's time to look at what you guys predicted down in the comments. Like most prediction videos, this will be sort of a lightning round. I'll quickly read the comments and discuss whether or not I personally agree with these predictions. Super Sibling 0555 suggests that there will be a secret final boss at the end of the subfloor. Personally, I agree with this prediction and I hope it comes true. The outdoors got a lot of praise for having a lot more effort put into it, such as a chase and a boss fight at the end. I think other subfloors are going to try to follow a similar format to the outdoors so they all have the same level of quality. Blizz Clearly the Best 7276 added on to this, predicting that the archives will actually be endless. However, once you reach a certain point, you'll be able to fight the final boss at any time, similar to the exit rooms in the subfloor that we have now. This would be pretty interesting, but I'm not sure if the devs are really interested in any sort of endless subfloor. They've always kind of been against an endless mode for doors, so much so that they made one as an April Fool's joke, and they made it as tedious as possible. Furthermore, it seems like an actual endless mode seems to currently be impossible in the game's code. In every mode that's meant to be endless, the game will stop generating rooms at some point. In the Trick or Treat mode, room generation actually stops at door 501. And even in the April Fool's mode, it actually ends at door 1001. I'm sure they could increase the room limit if they wanted to, but as it stands right now, it seems like the game is meant to end at some point, and I think the archives will be no different. Legal Rules predicts that since the archives is taking so long to release, then Floor 3 might release alongside it. This would be pretty cool, but I see no universe where this is the case. As I mentioned earlier, the archives is meant to have a lore setup for Floor 3, so there needs to be a period of time where only the archives is available to give the fans some time to play it and get ready for the main floor. Also, if they were released alongside each other, then the archives would get completely glossed over because of Floor 3, since that's gonna get way more attention. The devs started making batch updates for this exact reason, so there's no way the devs would drop two major updates alongside each other. Ethan Price says that the update will have doors. Oh my god, no way, how could I have never predicted that? Shifter Guy predicts that there will be a doodle buddy, much like what Rooms Revisited currently has. Honestly, it would be cool to see a new buddy alongside the release of this subfloor. Though I'm not sure if they're just gonna copy what Rooms Revisited currently has, so I feel like the buddy would be something else entirely. 2BJ Official predicts that the original room subfloor is gonna become a vision, similar to the Hotel Minus vision. You probably already picked up on this from my own predictions, but I definitely agree with this one. Even though the current room subfloor has its issues, a lot of people somehow still enjoy it, so I think the devs will try to preserve the current version. Minimac12 predicts that Wade will finally be added into the game. Again, for those who don't know, Wade was a scrapped entity that was originally going to be in Floor 2. All that we know is that he was an underwater entity.
I am under the water.
Now look, I would love to see Wade implemented as much as the next guy, but come on man, in the archives, where is the water? There is none. Look, I'm sorry man, but you're just coping. If they ever do end up adding Wade to the mines, it's definitely going to be in its own batch update. Hubernate RBLX predicts that we will finally see El Goblino's wife, La Goblina. I mean, this seems like a weird time for that to happen, but I guess if a subfloor were to ever have a shop at its own, then it would make sense to see La Goblina. I don't think I agree with this prediction, but it's definitely an interesting one. I would definitely like to see some subfloor shops. And finally, Rush U10 predicts that the fridge will finally be a useful hiding spot. Hey man, one can dream, and if it doesn't become a reality, you could always just hide in the fridge for fun. But anyway, that is all the predictions for the upcoming archive subfloor. Like I said, I genuinely do think that this floor is gonna launch soon this time, so hopefully we'll be able to play for ourselves very soon. But as always, let me know what predictions you guys have down in the comments below. Sorry that the uploads have kind of been slow. I've honestly been feeling a little demotivated because of everything that's happened to Roblox in the past month, but I'm slowly getting back into it to make videos for you guys to enjoy. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.